Naming things is hard. Whether it's people, places, or things, coming up with good names for your world building is freaking difficult. But it's also vital, because good names are really important. Names provide your readers or players with the first impression of literally everything in your world setting. And if you're not careful, they can sound improbable, out of place, or even set off the dreaded snigger trigger. My name is Janet from World Anvil. People pay me to world build stuff and write stuff, and I have 6 easy tips for world building names that will make your fantasy and sci-fi world building evoke exactly the feeling you want, right from the very introduction. My absolute #1 trick for creating names for anything is something I call verbal erosion. Start with something that feels like a pretty solid name, and then say it 100 times. Or just simulate it to save yourself a few moments. For example, Oak Village, could become Oakenville, a much more real-sounding place name. The Banana River might become the Bannery, or even the Banary, and you could add river to create Banary River. You can use this kind of verbal erosion to simulate how the passing of time might corrupt a couple of words into a serviceable name. Oh, and it doesn't just work for the English language. You can use this verbal erosion in tandem with all my other suggestions in this video to further refine your names. Which brings me to my second approach for world building names. Why limit yourself to just one language, or 2 or 3, when you have the internet? The trick here is to use language clusters, not just a single language, so you don't end up with a carbon copy of something that already exists out there. For example, when I was working on a Viking-inspired culture, I dug into Icelandic, German, Swedish, and Dutch to find great names. I combined the languages to create new words that still had convincing sounds and roots, but felt fresh. The verbal erosion trick works great with this approach too. And another great approach to naming is to call something close to a real-world thing, but not exactly the same. This allows you to pull on the resonances of the real world without just stealing names wholesale. For example, you might call an enlightened northern city Polaris, like the Northern Star, or a fictional general Alexander, like Alexander the Great, or Alexandros Megalos, as it is in Greek. Your readers and players may or may not pick up on the reference. Bonus points if they do, but either way, it'll give a lot of depth and resonance to your peoples, places, and things. If you use this approach, remember to twist it just enough. It needs to feel distinct and original, not like a carbon copy. Oh, and make sure it's not too screamingly obvious. For example, giving General Alexander a different surname to switch things up. While borrowing from the real world is great, you can, and should, also integrate things from your own world setting and its history. Examples from our world: the Philippines was named after its colonizer, King Philip II of Spain. The village Burton Lazars was originally a leper colony, or Lazarus colony. That's where the Lazars part comes from. And the village Battle was named after the Battle of Hastings. And plenty of places are named after local plants and animals, like Hertford, where the deer, the hart, cross the river, or Aycliffe, named for its oak trees, or ache trees. How about places named after religious ideals, like Paradise, Mount Joy, or Bird in Hand, a reference to the biblical proverb? And speaking of religion, the Puritans were a veritable fount of bizarre people names. Some great ones include anger, fly fornication, fear God, and my personal favourite, Die Well, a red shirt name if ever I heard one. People, events, plants, animals, diseases, and religions in your own world setting can also give rise to world-building names. And it's a great way to double down on the world-building you've already done, and create richness through the time and space of your setting. And how about a portmanteau or two? A portmanteau is a new word based on blending 2 other words together. For example, mix copper and robot, and you get Robocop. Examples from our own world include motel, spork, Netflix, and labradoodle, but it's also very common in fiction. Consider neuromancy or cyborg. This works especially well for cyberpunk and sci-fi, but can also work for magics and technologies, or even magitech. See what I did there? Portmanteaus are great for naming technologies, magics, and strange objects because your audience can get the gist of your invention quickly. After all, it's just 2 things that they already know stuck together to create something new. But they can work well for places too, like Pennsylvania, which means Penn's Woods in Latin. And speaking of Latin and other made-up languages, if Google Translate isn't cutting it, why not create your own language, a conlang, to base your names on? Earlier, we talked about Oak Village, but what if you have your own words for oak and village? Or if a full conlang is too scary, and I totally understand it's a lot of work, you could always create a conslang instead. This is more like a peppering of in-world words, and it's a lot easier to start with. We have a whole video about how to make a conslang, so go and check that out for more guidance. Oh, and by the way, conlang and conslang, also portmanteaus. So that's 6 easy approaches to naming, but I haven't even touched on more advanced naming techniques. So if you want a more advanced video about world building names that digs into the psychology of sound, please let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, please share how you prefer to approach naming in world building too. If you're hungry for more naming theory, then check out our video on the Tiffany problem. Or if you're ready to start world building, hop over to worldanvil.com, the world building software where you can keep track of all the names in your world and create conslangs and conlangs too. Now, grab your hammer and go world build.